Hi and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to build another SFF PC using this Mechanic Master C24 small something. I also bought this with the mesh panel, which we will try out as well. So upon opening, you'd see the manual, a bunch of dust filters, an accessory kit. Seems that it contains screws, zip ties, and a badge or a sticker. This is the usual QC certificates from Chinese cases. The labeling is mostly Chinese, but you could see the dimensions here. Then there's a screwdriver. This is padded by a thick foam, around 1.5 inch. Then this is the case itself. Okay. So this is the case itself. It's actually very small. This is the smallest case for the past 6 months. At the front, there's a mesh cutout, so you can buy a solid front as well. Then there's a power switch, USB-C, and USB 3. There's no front panel audio. Yeah, there's no front panel audio. At the back, there's a cutout for the motherboard, cutout for the GPU, which is 3 slots, a slot for a 90mm fan, and power plug. So as you can notice, this is a somewhat traditional style layout of a case, similar to the CH160 and NR200P version 1. This is the glass. I guess to remove the side panels, you have to twist the thumb screws. So you can't use any screwdriver for this. These are zip tied, so you need scissors when you buy this case. So inside the case, there's a handle. As for the cables, the power extension plug, power switch, which is bundled, USB-C, and USB 3. So it's my first time seeing this manual, and it seems that I could remove all panels, which is great. So the bottom, the top, and the front. Then based on the manual, at the back, you could fit a 90mm fan. At the front, only an 80mm fan. You could fit two 8mm fans or one 120mm fan at the top and at the bottom. They have the same fan configuration. Let's see if I could maximize that. So I think I'll try to use 80mm fans. Is there an English version? Yeah, there's no English version. But the pictures are quite nice. The manual is also quite nice. It's probably worth 100 to 200 pesos for this manual alone. The problem is that there is no instructions on how to remove the panels. Yeah, it's mostly installation. Anyway, that's fine. If there's a screw, probably you could remove it. So there are 9 screws at the top and 9 screws at the bottom as well. At the side, there are 4 screws. Total of 22 screws to be removed. Okay, let's start. Two of these are from the top panel and 4 of these are from this side panel. So if you'll notice, the side panel screws are a bit taller and the dimensions are pretty much different. Point is, don't mix these screws. Few more for the bottom panel. So again, there's 9 screws. The bottom and top panel seems to be interchangeable. So you'll notice here that the screw holes are the same, which is quite good. So even this plate here is also interchangeable. Then I think you'll be able to remove this and this one as well, which will give you access to everything, which is nice. So you may also need to remove the power supply mount, and it has 2 screws, one at the top and one at the front. Sorry, there's 2 at the front. There's one more here. So as for the components, I'll be using the usual B650i from Asus. The processor is the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. RAM is the Trident Z5 Neo RGB, 32GB, 6000 megatransfers, CL30 RAM. So I also removed the mounting clips for the cooler. Anyway, I'll try to fit in a few fans. I think for the top fan, if you want to put a 120mm fan, you might want to consider a slimmer fan than this one. This is too thick for this. The 80mm fan could be thicker though, because it will not hit the components directly. But we'll see, we'll see. The manual suggests to install the motherboard with the CPU and M.2 and probably the cooler. And if you notice here, the top bracket can be removed as well. Yeah, it seems that you can. Anyway, before I install this to the case, I think I'll install the cooler first so that I have an idea on how tall will this be. Anyway, as for the cooler, I'll be using these ID Cooling SE207XT. This is a 135mm cooler, which is basically the limit of this case. So it's my first time opening this cooler. Inside, there's a manual. I think this is a fan, but maybe accessories as well. Oh, I was wrong. These are accessories. So mounting brackets, fan clip, thermal paste, Intel backplate, Y splitters, Intel standoffs, no label standoffs, and a few more clips. So this is probably the fan. There's a single fan included. Then this is the cooler itself. Actually cool, looks okay. There's a warning label at the bottom. So usually these short mounting clips are for the AM4. I need this. So looking at the ID Cooling 120mm fan included, the fan holes are different from the standard fan holes. So I guess that's why this is different. So this is meant for their included fan, but they have extra fan clips for regular 120mm fans, which is appreciated. So these are AMD screws then. There are 4 of those. So these standoffs are compatible with AM4 and Intel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not sure if we will need these. These 4 are needed. These are for Intel. Put the 4 standoffs on top of the motherboard. Just screw this. Then apply thermal paste. And then mount this. Oh, don't forget to remove the warning label. 3 turns at a time. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Midway, you might want to look if it's properly mounting, which looks good.
Install the fan to the cooler.
So plug one to the Y splitter, then plug the fan to the fan header. So we will use this for one more Y splitter. So while you're here, I think it's best to plug the PSU cables. So the CPU and the 24 pin as well. So I'll plug one more Y splitter here in anticipation of the other fans. So I think it's time to put this here to the case. Okay, so given this, can we even put a fan at the top? Maybe if we put this first. Oh, if we put this first, then it's possible. So yeah, thick fans at the back, possible. Oh, I think this is too thick for this. It will hit the fan clips. So I guess I'll install this first. So I will install a slim fan at the top. So you might want to remove the vibration pads. Trial 2. Trial 2, see if it will fit. Yes, somehow it fits. For now, let's plug the cables. That's the USB-C, USB 3, and the power switch bundle. Screw the motherboard to the case. Okay, so the problem is the cable mess, which I will try to address now. So it seems that I could hide some behind the motherboard. Okay, so at least there's a way to hide the cables behind the motherboard, which is great. Not all the cables though. So anyway, time to mount the PSU. As for the PSU, I'll be using the FSP Dagger Pro 850 watts gold power supply. So the orientation is that this is at the rear. So you might want to orient the front fan of the PSU facing the front of the case. But if your version of C24 is not the air version, you would want to position the fan facing the cooler. Since we are using the air version, I think this is the proper way. So use the same screw that I used for the motherboard. Just screw the PSU to the PSU bracket. Then let's try to plug this back to the case. But I forgot one thing. The power extension cable. Let's see if I will be able to plug this. Oh well, plug it here to the PSU. Then turn on the PSU. Then try again. Plug the cables to the PSU. So that's the CPU. Then this is for the 24 pin. So I really don't know how to cable manage this. Then it's time to work on the GPU. So first, remove this cover. It's another 2 screws again.
Remove the PCIe covers from the case.
So as for the GPU, I'll be using this Zotac RTX 4070 Super. I think it's just right. I'll try to plug it here. Doesn't fit directly. The technique is to push this side really far. Yeah, just slant it a bit. There you go.
And then plug the GPU to the motherboard.
So I'm not sure if I can still fit a fan here. Definitely not this thick.
At this point, I also tried to install a thick fan to the bottom of the GPU.
So I managed to insert this thick fan here.
Screw the bottom fan to the case.
Screw this GPU baffle to the case. Plug the power. So the question is whether I could fit in a slim fan here.
And after a single try, I managed to install a slim 80mm fan to the front.
So one more fan splitter. The fan splitter. Anyway, let's put the covers first. So I'm putting in the feet first because I have a bottom fan. I think we're ready to test. So it posted. The only problem is this cable. It's being hit by the rear fan. So if I put it here, I think it will be safe.
Now it's time to close the side panel.
Close the top panel. The I/O plate. Then flip it upside down. Oh yeah, wow, looks really good, man. I think the handle will go somewhere here. Looks like it doesn't thread. I think it should go here. Then maybe I should use the longer screws. Some of the default screws will be removed so that you could use the handle. Remove this screw here and this screw here at the middle. Keep it inside this so that you will not lose it. Use the longer screw from this, so it's positioned here previously. So the last part is to cover the case. Could also put the dust filters, but I didn't. Peel. There's not much static because it's not acrylic. Hand screw this. One more thing remaining is the lock here. Then just screw it here. Looks really good. Oh, the USB 3 is also colored yellow. And even the USB-C, that's a nice touch. Anyway, I'll test it now.
As for the temps while testing Cinebench R23 for 30 minutes, the CPU temps averaged at 88.02 degrees Celsius on a mesh side panel and 89.13 degrees Celsius on a glass side panel, a measurable 1.1 degrees Celsius difference. With Cinebench R24 for 30 minutes, the CPU temps averaged at 85.47 degrees Celsius on a mesh side panel and 86.58 degrees Celsius on a glass side panel. Again, a measurable 1.1 degrees Celsius difference. With FF15 in 4K for 30 minutes, the CPU temps averaged at 73.18 degrees Celsius on a mesh panel with a bottom fan and 75.32 degrees Celsius on a glass panel with a bottom fan. Removing the bottom fan makes it 0.2 to 0.55 degrees Celsius hotter. The CPU temps are on a relatively hotter side as compared to big cases where it is below 70 degrees Celsius. The GPU temps averaged at 77.32 degrees Celsius on a glass panel with a bottom fan and 78.03 degrees Celsius on a mesh panel with a bottom fan. Removing the bottom fan makes it 0.8 to 1 degrees Celsius hotter. While it is really hot, do note that on Open Test Bench, the GPU reaches 74 degrees Celsius anyway, so the results are not that far. The mesh panels made the CPU 1 degree Celsius cooler but slightly hotter on the GPU side. This is normal and I've seen this in Q58 as well. Anyway, given that you have to pay extra for the mesh panel, I wouldn't really recommend it as it is not that of a game changer. I do recommend the bottom fans though as there is really less fresh air to the GPU, so having that active fan at the bottom will help push cold air to the GPU and the whole system overall. As for my tips to the buyer of the case, expect to do test fitting and your fan mount mileage will vary in this case. I was able to install 80mm fans at the top and front of the case, but depending on your motherboard, cooler, and GPU, you might not be able to install fans in this position, or you might even have the option to upgrade to a 120mm fan at the top. Again, this makes it a bit challenging to plan ahead as compatibility will vary depending on your specific setup. With that, I suggest buying fans at a later stage when you have tested your components to the case. Though by right, you will be able to fit a slim 80mm fan at the front if your GPU is at most 235mm, and maybe a thick 80mm fan if your GPU is at most 220mm. millimeters. If your GPU is 245 millimeters, I recommend removing the back panel first to ensure that it fits properly. You may also want to route the CPU power cable behind the motherboard to reduce the clutter. As this case is compact, I recommend undervolting your GPU in this scenario, especially if you plan to use a 220W TDP GPU. If you are not confident in undervolting, consider opting for a sub 200W TDP GPU instead. This is for cooler operation. I understand that the temps are within operating temps, but I would still prefer a sub 75 degrees Celsius GPU. Also, the tester run in a 26 degrees Celsius environment. Expect it to be hotter during summer. I also suggest buying custom power cables, as this will significantly reduce the clutter inside your case, especially for the GPU, as there's really no place to hide these cables. As for my comments to the case, I wish there were more cable management options. At the very least, something like the NR200P would have been helpful. In NR200P, you can secure loose cables under the PSU. Next is that there are lots of screws in this case. 4 on each side, 9 on the top, 9 on the bottom, 2 for the PCIe back cover, and 3 for the PSU mount. If you choose to have the handle, that's an additional 2 screws. In total, that's at least 31 screws and at most 33 screws. Removing or replacing the bottom fan meant that I had to remove 4 from the right side panel, 4 from the left side panel, 4 from the feet, and 2 bottom screws. Total of 14 screws just to remove 1 fan. Mechanic Master could easily reduce 14 screws from the 31 screws if they designed it properly, and I'll just detail my 14 screws in the description box. Next is that the AIO compatibility is questionable in this case, as it requires mounting directly to the side panel. Unlike other cases that include a dedicated AIO bracket, this approach limits compatibility. For example, the Deepcool LS320 isn't compatible with C24 due to its thick edges, which restrict its positioning. As a result, you won't be able to screw the side panel back onto the case. My suggestion to Mechanic Master would be to include the dedicated AIO mounting brackets like other cases do, as these are designed specifically to ensure better compatibility. Overall, the case is expensive at 7,000 pesos or around $120 US. If I look at myself 4 years ago, I wouldn't even consider this because it is pricey and the compatibility isn't really that good. You'd buy this case because you like the looks, its form factor, and its portability. Having a squarish design makes it easy to handle as compared to the S400 or S300. The gaming temps are within operating temps, but I would strongly suggest undervolting or having a weaker GPU. Personally, with this money, I choose the S400 and save the difference for a better component. While there's a compromise on the CPU cooler, the S400 has better GPU compatibility, and its dual chamber and top fan design ensures that the temps of the GPU doesn't affect the CPU that much. Given everything I said, it's just the start of the year, but this will likely be a winner in terms of aesthetics this 2025. Anyway, that's it for this video. Do let me know in the comments below on what you think of this case. Thanks for watching. Do like or dislike and subscribe for more unboxing, SFF builds, and benchmarks. Bye!